These are the Park Tool bike chain cleaners. I've been using the consumer model, but it broke. I bought this as a replacement, but I don't think that's going to work either. So let me take you through why this one broke and the things that I think will keep this from being a good replacement. This is the Park Tool CM-5.2. You can see it just there. It's the consumer model. I use this once a week, sometimes more, but at least once a week. And here's how it works. It's got a top that comes off like this. There's a brush up there that spins freely. This is the same brush right here, and this is a slightly different brush. You run chain through here, and then you put the top on like this, and the bottom secures to the top with this latch. You flip it around like that, and that's where the first problem comes in. You can see there are a network of spider cracks. If we get the glare off, there are a bunch of spider cracks down here. And that's because this process puts a lot of stress right there. This is not the original screw. There was a pin in there that was like riveted in some way. That fell out a long time ago, and you can see that the other latch is here because that one has also just broken. And this one actually I think has, yeah, that has worse spider cracks. So you can see the problem there. And this is just due to choosing a plastic that's not strong enough for the dimensions of these features. There's a lot of force going in there and not enough plastic, and so it cracks. And it's a brittle plastic, so that's a problem. The brittleness of the plastic also leads to the second problem, which is I dropped this the other day, and it cracked everywhere. There's a big crack here. There's a big crack here. It goes all the way down. There's a magnet that's supposed to go there, but that part broke also. I don't know, it just seems like this plastic is too brittle for this application. But as you'll see, when we compare it to this other one, it does have some strong points. So let's come back to that. This is the professional model. This one is the CM-25 professional chain cleaner. It has a housing made from aluminum. It's a cast aluminum, looks like a die cast, and maybe powder coated blue. Let me show you a couple things that you can't see on the website. The first one is the way the handle attaches. The handle attaches right here with a little set screw, one set screw. Let's point with something a little smaller. There's the set screw right there. And the problem with that, we'll set it down so you can see, is that the handle wiggles. It pivots about that set screw. The set screw does a great job of holding onto the main case, but there's a bunch of slack, bunch of slop at the edges here, and it allows this to rotate. And this is, so I just got this and unpacked this. And that is not going to get any better with time. Let me take this off and I'll show you why that is. So I've loosened up the set screw so the handle can move now, and you can see the problem in the amount of lateral slop that it's got. If this were tight and the set screw was just holding it in, then that would be just a fine design. But it's not. The set screw has to hold it in, but also try to restrain this other slop. And because there's only one, it's not able to do that. If there were two, it would do okay, but there's only one. One way to tackle this kind of design problem is to use, instead of a square, if we look at this piece of the handle here, you can see that it's square. This is at a 90-degree angle with that, and there are some small chamfers here, but the inside surface of this of the case, I'll show you where I mean, right in here, that does not have a corresponding chamfer, and so that means that this when you put this in here, it doesn't wedge itself in there, it just rattles around. And that's actually where this one works pretty well. This handle is not a square, it's a triangle. The top is slightly narrower than the bottom. so that when you slide it in here, it wedges itself in place and holds it firmly, despite a lack of any fasteners at all. That has worked great. And so if this one were improved with some kind of taper, that would handle this problem and allow one set screw to hold it in place. Once we open it up, let's put this out of the way. Once we open it up, the consumer model uses individual brushes, but this one, let's put the handle back here so it doesn't tip over. But this one, the brushes come out as a cartridge, and so there's the second problem. This sponge falls right out, and this cloth, the chain moves through this way, and so it gets scrubbed, and then presumably this sponge and cloth dry it out before it goes outside. But the sponge doesn't stay in there, so it's gonna fall out and be lost immediately. And the reason it doesn't stay in there is that it's too short. If it were a little bit longer, then it would stay in there. The sponge is held between this crossbar and that crossbar, and you can see daylight on both sides. So it just rattles around in there, and there's nothing to hold it. Sometimes you get lucky in it, and it stays in for a minute, but it'll just fall right out. The same is true on the bottom, but you've got gravity helping you out in that case. This cloth is really a pain. That comes out quickly too. This design is a little weird. It doesn't look like, I don't know, the top and the bottom cloth retaining features are designed separately. Like they're not the same. And that's a little weird because the bottom cloth retaining features actually work pretty good, because you can see the cloth pokes through a good ways, and so it's got a good hold on there. And the reason it can do that is that the cloth features on the bottom are closer together. They are on the top. Let's zoom in so you can see what we're talking about. So if we put these side by side, you can see that. So this one is the bottom. It's got the big brush. You can see that they're closer together. If we line up the left hand cloth slot, then you can see that the right hand slots don't line up. And I'm surprised by that. I would have expected them to use the same, the same features on top and bottom. Yeah, part of the reason why they didn't is that this one's getting pretty close to the end, so you have to kind of incorporate it into this end feature. Okay, fair enough. But they, the top handles that problem differently, and seems like the bottom could have as well. It would be more effective to do that. And the second kind of weird thing is that the width of the slots are different. So notice that the left-hand cloth slots, the top slot is wider than the bottom slot. The bottom slots match each other, and the bottom slots match the top right slot. The top left slot doesn't match. So the cloth just falls right out. That's pretty weird. Yeah, so I don't know. In my view, that means that those drying features aren't very useful. Maybe this sponge will stay in, but there's all this other stuff that's gonna, either these will get worn out right away, or more likely they'll fall out. And this one will fall out and get lost too. So that means that about, I don't know, half the width is not very useful. And the handle wiggles. So I'm not sold on this Pro version. I think the case will hold up just fine, but I think the guts are not very useful. And this consumer version is made out of a plastic that's too brittle. They've changed the design recently. This is the 5.2 and they have now the 5.3 available, but the plastic is the same. It's going to have the same cracking issues, at least from dropping, if not from the end latches, which they've also changed. So I'm feeling like Park doesn't make a tool that's built for me. A guy that, I'm just a regular guy, but I use it pretty frequently, once a week, sometimes more. And I'd love to buy something from them, but I don't think either of these is the right tool.